for us, it was Jerusalem. We never heard about Israel, especially not the one that you're familiar with, the modern Western country. We thought it's going to be exactly like in Ethiopia, when Ethiopia is still, unfortunately, kind of a third world country, most of the area. And we strongly believe that we will arrive to the Jewish nation, where everyone is Jewish, when everyone is black, when everyone is observing Jewish life like we do. And can you imagine what a shock it was for us? So the Ethiopian Jews love to call themselves Beta Israel. And if you're familiar a little bit with Hebrew, it's very similar to Beit, Beta, Beit, house, Israel, Israel of course. And we call ourselves the house of Israel. We strongly believe for the thousands of years we were the tribe that was holding the tradition, the religion, and the Bible for years as the house of Israel. But the people around us in Ethiopia, the Christians and the Muslims, called us Falashim. That's a more familiar name that people will know, because the first people that traveled to Ethiopia to look for the Jews or to encounter with Jews, and they were looking for them. So the people that surround us told them, oh, you're looking for the Falashas. So that's how also a lot of books, when they was reading about us in the 70s or the 60s, called the Falasha. But it's actually not a nice nickname to call us. We do not like it. Falashim actually, again, if you look at it in the Hebrew words, the Hebrew roots, it's Polesh, Polshim, stranger. They actually called us as strangers. We never really had a right to have a land in Ethiopia. So if someone wanted to extend his land living next to me as a neighbor, he could just take my land, because Jews didn't have property in Ethiopia. And years later, they fixed the terminology and people stopped calling us Falashim in Israel, they call us Beta Israel, but it's really offending name. And for thousands of years, the Jews in Ethiopia strongly believed that it was observing and keeping the right way of Jewish life. As you can see in the picture behind me, one photo was taken in 1975, really at the beginning of exchange and talking with the leadership in Ethiopia and the leadership in Israel in order to prepare the ground to bring us. And you see the synagogue. It's actually built like this, kind of like the temple in the the second temple. It's the Bible, the Torah will be inside, and around it only the Kohanim. The Kohanim is the rabbis in the community can stand around the Torah, and then around the rabbis only Bnei Israel, the male, could stand, and women were outside of the synagogue. They couldn't enter inside because we're not pure. We're not pure enough to be inside of the synagogue. That's how it was handled for Shabbat service, for holiday service, for everything. And the second picture you see, this is the typical rabbi, Ethiopian rabbi. He's covering his head not with a kippah, because the kippah, it's a new thing that developed in thousands years later that we never heard. But we knew that you need to cover your head, so that was the way to cover your head. And usually having a glima, I don't know how to say glima in English, but you know what the king wearing behind him. I don't know how you say that in English. That it's with gold and it's very fancy one. Only rabbis could wear that, and only if a rabbi wear that, you knew, like by the gold and by the clothes you wear, and how higher the rabbi's status is. And the Torah, it's not a scroll Torah as we used to here or in Israel. It's actually a book made from leather, but it's from kosher animals' leather. You couldn't write it on a horse leather or something. It has to be a cow or sheep or any kosher animal. And the life in Ethiopia was very strict. It was only one way of being Jewish. You couldn't be a secular Jew or Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox. If you were a Jew, you were a Jew, practicing the Bible way, the biblical way. And if you didn't, you already considered assimilated. If you left the town or you left the village, you couldn't really own a Jewish life or a Jewish sense, because the community, the village, was keeping you among the Jewish life. Everything was around it. So the rabbi was the shochet, was the one that leading ceremonies, were also the leaders, even the political leaders. I mean, if there was any negotiation to do with political leaders outside of the town or the village, the rabbis will be the one who's going to stand out. And the villages in Ethiopia usually was next to a water. It used to be next to a river or next to a lake, because we need that for purity and all the other ceremonies that you need in the Jewish life. And really for years, the only way we practiced was a biblical way. So that's mean we never heard about Hanukkah, we never heard about Purim. We actually heard part of it. We heard about Esther fasting, so we fast for 3 days. But we never heard the happy end afterward, you know. And Shabbat was really the center thing of the community, Shabbat in Jerusalem. So observing Shabbat was something very, very strong that everyone did. And by the way, also people that choose to be secular or traditional today in Israel still have a strong feeling and connection to the Shabbat component. Even if they choose secular life, Shabbat's still going to be something important in their family life, and Jerusalem. So the story about Jerusalem, as we started before, and you heard about the journey of a few people that used to be in the age of 7, 14. I was 2.5 years old when we left Ethiopia. My mother was 25 years old, and my oldest sister, she was 7 years old. So I do not remember anything from that time. The sister, like those that you heard here, does remember all this awful thing they shared. And just imagine yourself, a 7 years old girl was required to walk our group walk for 3 weeks. And then we end up in the refugee camp that you see here. It's a refugee camp that was owned by the Red Cross, so a lot of people was there from Eritrea, Sudan, Ethiopia, not necessarily Jewish. So we needed to hide in our Jewish identity, because when the Mossad and the Jewish agency came to pick us up, we couldn't identify as Jews. It just came to take us in the middle of the night. They will identify you by a rabbi that recognizes you from the village, or someone from the village that know your parents and know you, know by names. You need to say names 7 generations back to come back in your family tree. And then in the middle of the night, you just leave everything behind you, get on a truck to another city in Sudan called Khartoum, from that to Gadrif, and from that we flew to some country in Europe. My mom said that we flew through Greece, people flew also through Italy, and then we landed in Israel. So on November 21st, 1984 to January 15, 1985, there was around 8,000 people that arrived to Israel. The first massive immigration from Ethiopia, the first time people in Israel see black Jew. And I will talk about it later. But during that aliyah, also more than 2,000 people died, because it was a matter of food, sickness, and aliens on the way, people that lost their way also and were stuck there. And a lot of the Ethiopians that also moved from Ethiopia to Sudan and already left their families and houses couldn't go back to Ethiopia anymore because they called betrayed. And what happened, do you know, by the way, why we needed 2 operations? We had Operation Moses, the first one. Why we needed the second operation, Operation Solomon? Do you know, by the way? Okay. I will show you the movie first of Operation Solomon, the second operation, taken in 1991, and I will tell you afterward why we needed another operation. We could just bring all the Jews. It wasn't too much. It was 30,000 Jews back then in 1984 in one time, right? We already moved from Ethiopia to Sudan, but it didn't happen. I'll show you in a moment.